Better late than never, I suppose. Last year during a trip to Florida, my wife and I rented our first electric car by selecting the most risky rental car option. Surprise me. We left the airport with a 2023 Chevrolet Bolt EV LT. We were interested in trying out this new type of vehicle, even though we were aware that meant part of our vacation would have to be spent learning how to recharge an electric car we weren't even the owners of. Before we get to that, let me tell you about the car. The Bolt EV is a single-motor, front-wheel drive layout hatchback that is one of the most affordable electric vehicles in the US right now, if not the single most affordable. All the trim levels have the same single-motor, front-wheel drive layout, so you won't have to worry about looking for the right trim level on the used market if you're looking for all-wheel drive. There isn't an all-wheel drive option. Now, this isn't a roomy car, but even though I'm a big guy, I fit in it pretty well. The suspension has an appealing and smooth ride quality to it, with a slight firmness that keeps it from having too much body roll. The view of the road ahead, to the side, and behind was all quite good. While a lot of controls are in the touchscreen menus, there are some button controls. However, I will say some of them are a little counterintuitive at first, but it's definitely something that you can mostly develop muscle memory for when owning it. These buttons control the driver and passenger heated seats, AC, temperature, fan speed, and for some reason the heated steering wheel button is on the passenger side like it's pretending to be a European car with holdover quirks from being right-hand drive originally. However, that one at the start of the VIN reveals that this is a US produced vehicle. My biggest complaint is the drive mode controls being buttons on the center console. However, it's electric and there's no transmission for our pintle selector stick to interact with, so I understand and I'll let it slide a little, especially since it clears up the center console space. For comfort, this gets a 6 out of 10. Performance is interesting. It has a 200 horsepower electric motor, and being electric, that power is ready to go at all times. However, it's still just 200 horsepower. I imagine most people know what 200 horsepower feels like, and it's a little better with electric, but it's not something you can pretend is a race car in stock form. Here it is on the highway going from about 50 to 70 miles per hour. This car isn't going to wow you with its cornering ability, but it does steer confidently. A middle-of-the-road score for performance, 5 out of 10. Like the handling, there was no noticeable slop in the fit and finish of the interior. Connecting to Apple and Android phones was easy and the controls were responsive. It seems like a lot of electric cars like to make a show out of the charging door, but this one was simple and worked. Just a lot of good design choices and very little of that hybrid and electric car insistence on being futuristic and unconventional. The dashboard isn't a sea of piano black plastic, but there is enough of it that you will likely find yourself cleaning it a lot. My quality score for this may be a little high, but from everything I've experienced, it has earned a 7 out of 10. Styling is the most subjective rating I give, but I try to give it a fair assessment. The styling of this car is where most of the hybrid electric car "I'm different and you need to know that" design managed to work its way into the final product, but the design team managed to restrain themselves just enough to make a mildly stylish vehicle that doesn't scream for attention in traffic, even with this silver flare metallic paint. The most odd styling detail is the brake lights in the bumper because the taillights are part of the rear hatch, and brake lights aren't allowed to be part of that moving component. I think 5 out of 10 is fair for this, which may sound harsh, but I use this same scale for sports cars. However, I do grade utility within a vehicle's category. It would be silly to dock points on the Chevy Bolt for not having a truck bed. This moderately small vehicle is built for Walmart trips, not Home Depot trips. But you do get decent space in the rear hatch area, and the rear seats work well for extra storage when not occupied. Because there's no drive shaft or exhaust pipe to account for, there's no bump in the middle of the foot space in the rear seat area, and that also gives you some extra room under the center console up front. The lack of front trunk and reported long charging times are the biggest marks against the Bolt for this generation. While there are vehicles in this category that make smarter use of space, this car earns a solid 8 out of 10. With an overall simplified score of 31 out of 50, it may sound pretty average, but it's a pretty decent little car that I would not be upset to be handed the keys to again for another mystery rental. I only wouldn't own one myself because it's just not the type of vehicle for my life as it is, but it's certainly worth considering if you're looking for something relatively small with a row of seats behind the driver and electric powered. Speaking of, you may be wondering how my first ever electric car recharge went. Well, we're both going to have to wait on that. While typically rental car agencies want their vehicle back with a full tank of gas, we were told that we didn't need to bring the car back fully charged, and our driving didn't add up to enough miles to require a recharge, so there was absolutely no fuel cost on this rental. I will definitely be looking for that fine print next time I rent a car on vacation. Consider checking out one of these videos next. One of these is what YouTube thinks you'll enjoy next, and the other one I picked. Thanks for watching Cars Simplified.